The cabin pressure made my breasts ache. 5 months since the accident, and my body still hadn't gotten the message that there was no baby to feed anymore. I shifted in my cramped economy seat, trying to find a position that didn't make the dampness spreading across my blouse quite so obvious. The flight attendant's sympathetic glance told me I'd failed. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling the familiar sting of letdown. My body's cruel reminder of what I'd lost, of the daughter I'd held for 3 precious hours before she slipped away, of the husband who'd died on impact, never knowing we'd lost everything. The plane lurched, and I gripped the armrest. Turbulence. Of course, because flying from Phoenix back to New York to sign the final paperwork on Miguel's estate wasn't traumatic enough without the universe throwing in a reminder of how my world had shattered in another vehicle, on another day when the sky had been just as cloudless. That's when I heard it. A baby's wail, piercing and desperate, cutting through the drone of the engines and the nervous murmurs of passengers white-knuckling their armrests. The sound went straight through me, triggering something visceral and immediate. My breasts responded before my mind could catch up, milk letting down in an embarrassing rush that soaked through the pads I wore religiously. I turned my head toward the sound, drawn by instinct I couldn't suppress. 3 rows ahead in first class, partially visible through the gap between seats, I could see a man. Even from behind, he radiated power. Broad shoulders filled out a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Dark hair, perfectly styled despite the hours we'd been in the air. And in his arms, a tiny bundle writhing and screaming with the kind of fury only an infant could manage. He was trying. I could see that much. His movements were careful, practiced, but there was a desperation to them that spoke of hours, maybe days, of this same struggle. The baby's cries escalated, and I watched his shoulders tense, watched him try different positions, different soothing motions. Nothing worked. The flight attendant approached him, her professional smile strained. I couldn't hear their exchange over the baby's wails and the plane's groaning, but I saw him shake his head, saw the attendant retreat with the relieved expression of someone escaping an impossible situation. My hands were moving before my brain engaged, unbuckling my seatbelt, rising from my seat despite the seatbelt sign still glowing overhead. The dampness on my blouse didn't matter. The curious stares of other passengers didn't matter. That baby's cry had triggered something primal in me, something that transcended logic or self-preservation. "Ma'am, you need to remain seated." A flight attendant intercepted me in the aisle, her hand on my arm. "I can help," I said, my voice hoarse from hours of not speaking. "With the baby. Please, I can help." She looked skeptical, but another particularly piercing wail made her wince. "I'll ask, but just let me try." I was already moving past her, drawn forward by that crying and by the ache in my chest that was both physical and something deeper, more devastating. I reached the first-class section and stopped at his row. Up close, he was even more imposing. Late 30s, maybe early 40s, with the kind of face that belonged on Roman coins. Strong jaw shadowed with careful stubble, a nose that had been broken at least once and reset with surgical precision. And when he looked up at me, eyes so dark they were almost black. Eyes that held the kind of weariness I recognized because I saw it in my own mirror every morning. "Excuse me," I said softly, my hands already reaching out in the universal gesture of offering help. "May I try?" His expression shifted through several emotions too quickly to name. Suspicion, desperation, something that might have been hope. The baby's screams were relentless, and I could see the tremor in his hands, the way his jaw clenched with barely controlled frustration. "You think you can do what I cannot?" His accent wrapped around the words. Italian. Smooth as aged wine and just as intoxicating. What every nurse, every nanny, every woman who's tried has failed to do. "Let me try," I repeated, and something in my voice must have reached him, because he stood, towering over me, and carefully, almost reverently, transferred the screaming bundle into my arms. The moment Pablo, I would learn his name later, settled against my chest, everything changed. The weight of him, warm and solid and alive, fit perfectly in the hollow space I'd been carrying. His tiny fists unclenched from their angry balls, his red, tear-stained face turned toward me, little mouth rooting instinctively. And then, miracle of miracles, he went quiet. Not just quiet, silent. His dark eyes, so like his father's, fixed on my face with an intensity that seemed impossible for someone so small. His breathing evened out. One tiny hand found its way to rest against my collarbone, right where my heart was thundering. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. I could feel every eye on us, but I couldn't look away from this perfect little being who had somehow, impossibly, found peace in my arms. My body responded to his presence, letdown happening again, more insistent this time. I crossed one arm over my chest, trying to maintain some dignity while holding him with the other. "Santo cielo," the man breathed, and when I finally tore my gaze from the baby to look at him, his expression had transformed. Wonder, shock, and something else. Something darker and more complicated that I couldn't name. "How did you—" "I don't know," I admitted, looking back down at Paolo, who had started making small, contented sounds, his eyes growing heavy. Sometimes babies just need the right person at the right time. The right person. He repeated my words slowly, as though tasting them. "Who are you?" "Paloma Reyes." I swayed slightly, an automatic rocking motion my body remembered even though my daughter had never lived long enough for me to perfect it. "And you are?" "Pietro." He didn't offer a last name, and I didn't ask. There was something about the way he said it, the way the flight attendants hovered at a respectful distance, the way other first-class passengers averted their eyes when he glanced their way, that told me this was a man accustomed to privacy, to power. "May I?" I nodded toward the empty seat beside him. My legs were starting to shake, whether from the plane's continued turbulence or from holding this precious weight, I couldn't tell. He gestured for me to sit, and somehow I managed to sink into the leather seat without disturbing Paolo, who was now fully asleep, his tiny chest rising and falling in the peaceful rhythm that every parent knows is worth more than gold. "How long has it been?" I asked quietly, not wanting to wake him. "Since he slept?" 18 hours. Pietro's voice was rough. "Since we left Sicily, he cries, always cries, except—" He stopped, his jaw working. "Except when his mother held him, before she died." The words hung between us, heavy with grief I understood too well. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it with every broken piece of my heart. "How did you know?" He leaned back in his seat, his eyes never leaving his son. "That you could calm him." I didn't know how to explain the pull I'd felt, the way my body had responded to his crying before my mind had even processed the sound. "I lost my daughter," I heard myself say, the words coming easier than they ever had before. 5 months ago. She was 3 hours old. My body, it's still—" I gestured vaguely at my chest. "It still thinks she's here." Understanding dawned in his dark eyes. "Your milk." I nodded, feeling heat rise to my face. "I've tried everything to stop it, but don't." The single word was a command, delivered with the kind of authority that made it clear he was used to being obeyed. "Paolo, he has not eaten properly since Maria died. The formula, he refuses it. The wet nurses, they frighten him. But you—" His gaze moved from his son to me, assessing in a way that should have made me uncomfortable, but instead felt oddly like being seen. "You he trusts." I couldn't, I started, but he was already shaking his head. In my family, there is an old tradition. Very old. From the hills of Sicily, from before we came to America, before we became what we are now. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something almost reverent. When a woman can nurse the child of the dawn, when a child finds peace only in her arms, it is a sign, a sacred bond. That woman becomes familia, family, untouchable, protected by the old laws that even our enemies must respect. I can't just... But Paolo chose that moment to root against my breast again, his little mouth seeking what my body was all too ready to provide. The plane will land in 40 minutes, Pietro continued, his voice softer now. Let him sleep. Let him have peace. And then, Paloma Reyes, we will talk about what this means. What you mean. Because you have done something no one else could do. You have given my son back to me. I looked down at the sleeping baby in my arms, at his perfect little face finally relaxed in rest, and felt something crack open inside my chest. This wasn't my daughter. This baby wasn't mine. But holding him, feeling his weight, his warmth, his absolute trust, it was like being handed a reason to keep breathing when I'd forgotten how. Okay, I whispered, not knowing what I was agreeing to, only knowing that I couldn't let go. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Pietro's hand came to rest on Paolo's head, gentle, protective, and his fingers brushed against my arm. The touch was brief, but electric, and when our eyes met, I saw something there that both terrified and compelled me. Grazie, he said softly. You have given me back my world. I didn't understand then, couldn't have known, that in saving his son, I had bound myself to something far more complicated than gratitude. That the man beside me wasn't just a father. That the old traditions he spoke of weren't just pretty stories. That by calming Paolo Valente, I had marked myself in ways that would change everything. The plane began its descent into New York, and I held that sleeping baby closer, breathing in his sweet infant smell, feeling my body respond to his nearness in ways that were both painful and healing. Behind us, I could feel the weight of stairs, the whispered conversations. But in that moment, in that small bubble of first-class peace, there was only the three of us. A broken woman with empty arms, a powerful man with a sleeping son, and a baby who had somehow, impossibly, bridged the gap between them. The car waiting for us at JFK wasn't just expensive, it was a statement. A black Mercedes S-Class with windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside, until the driver, a man built like a professional linebacker in an immaculate suit, opened the rear door. This isn't necessary, I said, shifting Paolo's weight in my arms. He was still sleeping, had slept through the entire landing, through the privileged deplaning that came with being in Pietro Valente's orbit. I can take a cab to my apartment. Pietro's hand settled at the small of my back, guiding me toward the car with gentle insistence. A cab? To where? The Bronx? He said it like he already knew the answer, and the realization sent ice through my veins. How do you... Get in, Paloma. We will talk. Not a request. Never a request with him, I was learning. I slid into the leather interior, Paolo still cradled against my chest. The car smelled of expensive cologne and something else, something that spoke of power and danger in equal measure. Pietro settled beside me, close enough that I could feel his body heat, and the driver closed the door with a soft, final click. Where are we going? I asked, as the car pulled smoothly into traffic. My home. You and Paolo need somewhere safe, somewhere he can eat properly, sleep properly. His dark eyes found mine. Somewhere you can rest without worrying about rent you cannot pay, or a landlord who is 2 weeks away from evicting you. The specificity of his knowledge made my stomach clench. You had me investigated. The moment you touched my son, yes. No apology in his voice. By the time the plane landed, I knew everything. Your husband, Miguel, dead 5 months. Your daughter, Sophia, 3 hours old when her heart stopped. The medical bills that bankrupted you. The apartment you can barely afford. The job interviews you've been going to. The positions you don't get because grief is written all over your face. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. You had no right. I had every right. His voice was firm, but not unkind. A stranger approaches my son, claims she can help when no one else could. You think I would let you near him without knowing exactly who you are, what you are, and what am I? The question came out sharper than intended. His gaze softened fractionally. Someone who understands loss. Someone whose body remembers what her arms have forgotten. Someone my son recognizes as safe. He paused. Someone I can trust, or someone I need to protect my son from. I had to know which. And what did you decide? That you are what you appear to be, a woman broken by tragedy, struggling to survive, who saw a crying baby and could not help but try to comfort him. His hand came to rest on Paolo's head, his fingers gentle. That you are exactly what my son needs. What I need. The weight of those words settled over me like a blanket, warm and suffocating all at once. I'm not a wet nurse. I can't just move into your home and... Can't you? He tilted his head slightly. What waits for you in that apartment, Paloma? An eviction notice? Empty rooms that echo with everything you've lost? Or do you prefer the hospital where you gave birth, where you held Sophia before she died? Is that where you've been going these past months, sitting in the parking lot, unable to leave, unable to enter? I felt the blood drain from my face. How do you know that? Because I know grief. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. I know how it drives us to return to the places where we last felt whole, even when those places destroy us a little more each time. I know because I am the same. I sit in Maria's room, in the nursery she designed, and I hold our son who will not stop crying. And I wonder if he knows, if he can feel that she is gone. The raw honesty in his voice cracked something inside me. Pietro, let me help you, as you have helped me. His hand found mine, the touch brief but electric. Stay with us. Feed my son with the milk meant for your daughter. Let your body do what it was designed to do, and in return I will give you safety, security, a place where grief is understood, not judged. Paolo stirred against me, making small hungry sounds. My body responded immediately, letdown happening with an intensity that made me gasp. Pietro noticed, of course he noticed, his eyes dropping to where my blouse was dampening again. Please, he said, and the single word held more weight than any command. Let him feed. He needs you. I need you to do this. I looked down at the baby in my arms, at his perfect little face starting to scrunch with coming hunger, and felt my resistance crumble. What was I holding on to anyway? Pride? The illusion of independence when I was 3 weeks from homelessness? The pretense that I was fine when I spent every night crying myself to sleep in the apartment where I'd prepared a nursery for a daughter who never came home. Just for tonight, I heard myself say. Until he's eating properly again. Until you find someone more appropriate. Pietro's smile was slight but triumphant. Of course, just for tonight. But we both knew it was a lie. The Valente estate was in Westchester, hidden behind walls that seemed more fortress than fence. The gates opened automatically as we approached, and I caught glimpses of men stationed at various points, their suits not quite hiding the bulk of weapons beneath. Is all this security really necessary? I asked, as we pulled up to a house that put mansion to shame. In my world? Yes. Pietro's voice was matter of fact, I have made many enemies building my empire. Men who would use my son to hurt me, if they could reach him. Men who would see this. He gestured to Paolo, as weakness to exploit. What kind of empire? I asked, though I suspected I already knew. He met my eyes steadily. The kind that requires walls and guards and absolute loyalty. The kind my father built, and his father before him. The kind that has kept our family powerful for 3 generations in America, and centuries before that in Sicily. You're telling me I'm telling you that I am a man who protects what is his. He opened his door as the driver came around. And as of today, Paloma Reyes, you are under that protection, which means you are safe, which also means... His expression hardened slightly. There is no leaving without my permission. Not because you are a prisoner, but because the moment you stepped into my car, you became valuable. Visible. A target for anyone who wants to hurt me through my son. The realization of what I'd agreed to crashed over me. I can't just disappear. People will ask questions. My landlord might... Your landlord has been paid through the end of your lease and convinced that you've moved in with family. Pietro helped me from the car, his hand supporting my elbow. Your few friends have received messages from your phone, sad but understandable, that you need time away to heal. Your grief counselor has been informed you're taking a break from sessions. As far as the world is concerned, Paloma Reyes is taking time to recover from her loss. Nothing unusual. Nothing to investigate. You did all this while we were on the plane? I have efficient people. He guided me toward the entrance where a woman in her 50s waited, her expression warm but assessing. This is Isabella, my housekeeper. She will show you to your rooms, help you get settled. Whatever you need, ask her. Rooms? I clutched Paolo tighter. I thought, you will have a suite near the nursery, connected by a door so you can hear Paolo when he wakes. Pietro's hand came to rest on my shoulder. I am many things, Paloma, but I am not a man who would take advantage of a grieving woman. You will have privacy, safety, and everything you need to care for my son. That is all. Isabella stepped forward, her smile genuine. Come, Cara. Let me show you where you'll be staying. And this little one needs feeding, yes? I can hear his hunger from here. She was right. Paolo was starting to fuss again, his small sounds escalating toward another crying fit. My breasts responded with an almost painful urgency. I started, but Isabella was already nodding. A comfortable chair, privacy, water to drink. I know what a nursing mother needs, dear. I raised 4 of my own. She glanced at Pietro. You should rest too, boss. You look like death. Only someone who'd known him a long time could speak to him like that. Pietro's slight smile confirmed it. Later. First I have calls to make. Paloma. He caught my hand as I turned to follow Isabella. Thank you for what you're doing, for what you've done. I will not forget this debt. The intensity in his dark eyes made my breath catch. It's not a debt. This helps me too. You have to understand that. Holding him, feeding him, I couldn't finish, emotion clogging my throat. I know. His thumb stroked across my knuckles, the gesture surprisingly tender. That is why this works. You give my son what he needs, and he gives you what you need. A purpose. A reason to keep breathing when you've forgotten why. How did he see me so clearly? How did this dangerous stranger understand the shape of my grief when my own family had tried to rush me past it, to convince me that time heals all wounds? Isabella guided me through a house that was less showplace and more home, surprisingly warm despite its size. We climbed a sweeping staircase to the 2nd floor, walked down a hallway lined with family photographs, older generations staring out with the same intense eyes I saw in Pietro. This will be yours, Isabella opened a door to reveal a beautiful suite decorated in soft creams and blues. The nursery is through there. She indicated a connecting door. Paolo's regular room, where his nanny would stay before... She didn't finish, didn't need to. Before his mother died, I completed quietly. Isabella nodded. Maria was a good woman. Too good for this world, perhaps. She tried to make Pietro softer, more open. She succeeded more than anyone thought possible. When she died in childbirth, complications no one could have predicted, he closed down again, became harder, colder. The baby, he is all that remains of her softness. Pietro, he cannot lose this child. He cannot. The weight of what she was really saying settled over me. You're telling me that if anything happens to Paolo, nothing will happen to Paolo. Her voice was firm. Not while you're here, not while you can give him what he needs. But you should know, Cara, that there are those who would see this situation very differently. Who would see you as a threat, an interloper, someone trying to take Maria's place. I'm not trying to take anyone's place. I know what you are. I see it in your eyes, the same grief Pietro carries. But others will not be so understanding. Isabella squeezed my hand gently. Be careful, Paloma, and trust no one completely. Not even me. Before I could ask what she meant, Paolo's fussing escalated into proper crying. My body's response was immediate and overwhelming. Go, Isabella said gently. Feed the baby. I'll bring you water and food. You need to keep your strength up if you're going to nurse. Alone in the beautiful room, I settled into a plush armchair by the window and carefully arranged myself, unbuttoning my blouse with trembling fingers. Paolo latched immediately, desperately, and the relief was physical and emotional all at once. I looked down at this baby who wasn't mine, feeling him draw sustenance from milk meant for a daughter who would never need it, and felt tears slip down my cheeks. This was wrong. This was temporary. This was a band-aid on a wound that would never fully heal. But God, it felt right. It felt like maybe, just maybe, I could survive this grief after all. Through the window, I could see the grounds, the walls, the guards. Could see the cage I'd walked into, gilded but a cage nonetheless. And in the doorway, barely visible in the dimming light, I saw Pietro watching. His expression unreadable. His presence a reminder that I was in his world now. Safe, protected, trapped. Mine, his eyes seemed to say. And despite everything, despite all the warnings screaming in my head, part of me whispered back, yours. 3 days passed in a strange dreamlike haze. I woke each morning in that beautiful room, nursed Paolo every few hours, and existed in a bubble of domesticity that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. The routine was simple. Feed the baby, sleep when he slept, eat the meals Isabella brought with maternal insistence, and try not to think about how completely my life had been consumed. Pietro was around, but not intrusive. He'd appear during feedings sometimes, watching from the doorway with that unreadable expression. He'd hold Paolo between nursing sessions, walking the nursery with his son against his shoulder, speaking to him in soft Italian that sounded like prayers. But he never pushed, never demanded more than what I was already giving. It was the 4th morning when everything shifted. I woke to find not Isabella, but Pietro sitting in the chair by the window, Paolo sleeping peacefully in his arms. The early light caught the edges of his profile, making him look softer somehow. Less like the dangerous man I knew him to be, and more like just a father holding his sleeping son. He's been down for 3 hours, Pietro said quietly, not looking at me. 3 hours, Paloma. I cannot remember the last time he slept so long without waking in terror, screaming for what he cannot have. I sat up, pulling the covers higher. I was wearing one of the silk nightgowns Isabella had provided, far too expensive and beautiful for someone like me. He's gaining weight too. I can feel it when I hold him. Yes. Finally, Pietro looked at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. You have given him back his life. How do I repay such a debt? It's not a debt, I said, echoing my words from before. I told you. I know what you told me. He stood, moving to place Paolo in the bassinet near my bed with practiced care. But I also know that nothing is free, that every gift comes with a price, even ones given from genuine kindness. So I am asking you, Paloma Reyes, what do you want? The question hung between us. What did I want? To turn back time? To hold my daughter again? To undo the accident that had stolen everything? I want to understand why I'm really here, I said finally. You said something on the plane about old traditions, about sacred bonds. What did you mean? Pietro settled into the chair I'd been using for nursing, his long legs stretched out before him. He was dressed more casually than I'd seen him, dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. Even relaxed, he radiated power. In the old country, in Sicily before my grandfather came to America, there were laws older than governments, he began. Laws of blood and honor and family. One of these laws was about wet nurses, about women who could feed the children of the powerful when their own mothers could not. I know about wet nurses. That's not exactly rare. But this was different. His dark eyes held mine. When a woman could calm a Don's child, when that child found peace only with her, it was seen as a sign from God, a sacred trust. That woman became familia, untouchable. To harm her was to harm the child, to harm the bloodline itself, and in return, she was protected absolutely. Given honor, wealth, security for life. That's medieval. Yes, he didn't deny it. But my family, we keep the old ways. We remember the traditions that others have forgotten. And when I saw my son stop crying in your arms, when I saw him root for your milk like he hadn't eaten in days, I knew. The old blood recognized what modern minds dismiss. I'm not Sicilian. I'm not even Italian. My family is Mexican. Blood does not care about borders. Pietro leaned forward, elbows on his knees. It cares about connection, about the bond between a woman and a child who needs her. You are that woman, Paloma. Whether you believe in the old ways or not, you are bound to my son now, and through him, to me. The certainty in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. I can't stay here forever. This is temporary, just until Paolo is eating properly, until you find someone more appropriate. There is no one more appropriate. His voice was firm. Do you think I have not tried? 20 wet nurses in 3 weeks. Every one of them terrified him. Every one of them failed. But you, he stopped, his jaw working. You he trusts. You he needs. How can I let you go when my son's life depends on you staying? That's not fair. You can't trap me here because I am not trapping you. He stood abruptly, moving to the window. You are free to leave whenever you wish. I will have you driven anywhere you want to go. Your apartment, a hotel, the airport. Anywhere. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. I appreciate everything you've done, but I think it's better if... But Paolo will cry. He turned to face me, and his expression was devastating. He will scream until his voice gives out. He will refuse to eat. He will make himself sick with grief for what he cannot understand. He's lost, and I will be forced to watch my son suffer, knowing the one person who could help him chose to walk away. The manipulation was transparent, but that didn't make it less effective. That's not fair, I whispered. No. He crossed back to me, kneeling beside the bed so we were eye level. "It is not fair. Nothing about this situation is fair. Not for you, not for me, not for Paolo. But it is what we have. And I am asking you, woman to man, mother to father, please, do not leave my son to suffer when you could prevent it." Tears slipped down my cheeks. What about my suffering? I lost my daughter, Pietro. Every time I feed Paolo, every time I hold him, it's like I'm dying all over again because he's not Sofia. He'll never be Sofia. And staying here, pretending this is sustainable, it's killing me. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb wiping away my tears with surprising gentleness. "I know. You think I do not see the grief in your eyes every time you look at him? The way you hold him just a little too tight, like he might disappear? I see it, Paloma, because I feel it too. Every time I look at Paolo, I see Maria. I remember her smile, her laughter, the way she would sing to him when she was pregnant. And it destroys me that he will never know her, never hear her voice, never feel her love. Then you understand why I can't stay." My voice broke. "Why this is too much. I understand why you think you cannot stay." His other hand found mine, holding it gently. But I also understand that running from pain does not make it stop. I tried. After Maria died, I threw myself into work, into rage, into anything that would distract me from the hole she left. It changed nothing. The grief waited, patient, until I was alone in the dark with our crying son. And then it devoured me. "What are you saying?" "That maybe we can help each other. Not by forgetting, never by forgetting, but by honoring what we've lost through what we can still give." He squeezed my hand. "You feed my son with milk meant for your daughter. That is not betrayal, Paloma. That is love. Sofia's love, continuing through you, keeping another child alive. Is that not beautiful? Is that not sacred?" I'd never thought of it that way, had only seen it as my body's cruel refusal to accept reality. But reframed like this, as an extension of the love I still carried for my daughter, it felt different. Felt like maybe Sofia's brief life could have meaning beyond the grief. "I need promises," I said, my voice barely audible. "If I stay, I need to know this isn't forever. That when Paolo is old enough, when he's eating solid foods and doesn't need me anymore, I can leave. I can go back to my life." Something shifted in Pietro's expression. "Of course, when the time comes, when Paolo no longer needs you, I will not keep you against your will. You have my word. And I need freedom. I can't be a prisoner here, no matter how beautiful the cage. I need to be able to go outside, see the sky, feel like a person instead of just a function. Within reason, yes." His jaw tightened slightly. "But you must understand, Paloma, that you are now connected to me through my son. That makes you valuable to my enemies. You will need security when you leave the estate. You will need protection. From what? From who?" He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing patterns on my hand. "I have not been entirely honest with you about the nature of my business. I told you my family is powerful, that we have enemies. But I did not tell you the full truth. Tell me now. I am the head of the Valente family." He watched my face carefully. "One of the 5 families that control organized crime in New York and across the northeastern United States. My grandfather built this empire from nothing. My father expanded it, and I have made it stronger still. Legal businesses, yes, many of them, but also other operations, things that exist in shadows, that cannot be spoken of openly." I should have been shocked, should have recoiled. But somehow, I'd already known. had seen it in the guards, the deference, the way Pietro moved through the world like a man who owned it. You're telling me you're a mafia boss? I am telling you, I am a man who provides for his family through whatever means necessary. His voice was steady. I am telling you that I have enemies who would use you to hurt me, who would take you or Paolo to gain leverage. And I am telling you that as long as you are under my protection, no harm will come to you. But that protection requires you to accept certain limitations. Limitations. The word tasted bitter. You mean control. I mean safety. He stood, his height suddenly intimidating. I have lost my wife, Paloma. I nearly lost my son to grief and starvation. I will not lose you both because you refuse to accept reality. This world I inhabit, it is dangerous. Staying here, staying with Paolo, it puts you in danger too. But at least here, within these walls, I can keep you safe. And if I want to leave anyway? If I decide the danger is worth my freedom? His expression went cold, the warmth I'd glimpsed disappearing behind the mask of the man who commanded an empire. Then I would ask you to wait, to think carefully about what you would be giving up, what Paolo would lose, and if you still chose to go, I would let you. But I would not let you go unprotected. My men would follow you, keep you safe from a distance. Because even if you leave my house, you cannot leave the bond you have with my son. That bond makes you familia, whether you accept it or not. That's insane. That is the old ways. He moved to the door. I need your answer, Paloma. Will you stay, help my son, let me protect you both? Or will you leave, force us both to suffer the consequences of your choice? I looked at Paolo, sleeping peacefully in his bassinet, looked at this tiny innocent who had somehow become my anchor in the storm of grief. Thought about my empty apartment, my empty arms, my empty life. 3 months. I heard myself say, I'll stay for 3 months. By then, Paolo should be eating some solid foods, should be less dependent on nursing. And then we reevaluate. We decide together if I stay or go. Pietro studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharp and final. 3 months. And in that time, you will see that this arrangement benefits us both more than you know. You will see that safety and purpose are worth more than the illusion of freedom. We'll see. His smile was slight but knowing. Yes, we will. He opened the door, then paused. Isabella will bring you breakfast. Rest today. Tonight I would like you to join me for dinner. Just the two of us, once Paolo is settled. We should know each other better if we are to share this responsibility. Is that a request or a command? With me, does it matter? His eyes glittered with dark humor. Either way, you will come. After he left, I sat in that beautiful room and wondered what I'd agreed to. 3 months living in the home of a mafia boss, nursing his son, bound by traditions I didn't understand and couldn't escape. But as Paolo stirred and reached for me with small, trusting hands, I knew I'd made the only choice I could live with. For better or worse, I was Valente Familia now. And God help me, I wasn't sure I wanted to leave. Dinner with Pietro was supposed to be simple. A meal, conversation, 2 people getting to know each other under unusual circumstances. Instead, it felt like a negotiation. Every word weighted with meaning beyond the surface. Isabella had laid out a dress for me, deep emerald silk that draped elegantly over my postpartum body, making me feel less like a grieving widow and more like someone who belonged in this world of wealth and danger. I'd tried to refuse it, insisting my own clothes were fine, but Isabella had simply smiled and left the dress hanging on the door. He wants you to feel beautiful, she'd said. Let him give you this, at least. So I wore the dress. Let Isabella style my dark hair into soft waves. Applied the makeup she offered with gentle insistence. and when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked sophisticated, put together. Nothing like the broken creature who'd boarded a plane 4 days ago. Pietro was waiting in the dining room, dressed in black slacks and a white shirt open at the collar, revealing the hollow of his throat. He looked up when I entered, and something flashed in his dark eyes. Appreciation, possession, something else I couldn't quite name. "You look beautiful," he said simply, rising to pull out my chair. "Isabella's doing," I deflected, settling into the seat. "She's very persuasive. She sees potential where others see only tragedy." He took his seat across from me. "It is a gift." A staff member I hadn't met before began serving the first course, some kind of soup that smelled divine. We ate in silence for a few moments, the quiet, comfortable rather than awkward. "Tell me about Miguel," Pietro said finally. "Your husband." The request caught me off guard. "Why?" "Because I want to understand who you were before grief changed you. I want to know the woman my son has chosen to trust." I set down my spoon carefully. Miguel was kind. Too kind, maybe. He worked as a teacher, elementary school. He loved children, loved seeing their faces light up when they learned something new. We met at a community center where I volunteered. He asked me to coffee 3 times before I said yes. "Why did you finally agree?" A small smile tugged at my lips despite the ache in my chest. He brought flowers to the community center every week. Not for me, he'd say, just brightening the place up. But they were always my favorites. Peonies in spring, sunflowers in summer. He was patient, persistent without being pushy. He sounds like a good man. He was. Past tense, always past tense now. We had 3 years together. Got married at City Hall because we couldn't afford anything else. Tried for a baby for 2 years before it finally happened. We were so happy when I got pregnant. So ridiculously, naively happy. Pietro's hand reached across the table, covering mine. "What happened?" Miguel was driving us to my doctor's appointment. I was 8 months pregnant, uncomfortable, complaining about everything. He was making jokes, trying to get me to smile. My voice cracked. The truck ran a red light. Hit us on the driver's side. He died instantly. They told me he didn't suffer, like that was supposed to make it better. "And Sophia?" "Emergency C-section. They got her out, got her breathing. But something was wrong. Her heart, they said. A defect they'd missed in all the ultrasounds. She fought for 3 hours. I got to hold her, feed her once from a bottle they gave me. She looked at me with these perfect dark eyes, and I thought, we're going to be okay. We survived. We can make it." I pulled my hand from under his, wiping at my eyes. She died in my arms, just stopped breathing. They tried to revive her, but I knew. I could feel her leave. The dining room was silent except for my ragged breathing. Pietro stood, came around the table, and did something unexpected. He pulled me to my feet and into his arms, holding me as I finally, fully broke down. Not the quiet tears I'd shed before, but wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep and primal. "I know," he murmured against my hair. "I know, Paloma. I know." And he did. I could feel it in the way he held me, in the steadiness of his breathing, in the strength of his arms. He knew this grief because he'd lived it too. When I finally pulled back, embarrassed by my breakdown, he kept his hands on my shoulders. Maria died bringing Paolo into this world. The doctor said it was a hemorrhage, that nothing could have been done. But I wonder, always I wonder, if I had chosen a different hospital, better doctors, if I had been there instead of handling business in the city. His jaw tightened. She labored for 18 hours alone except for nurses. I arrived 10 minutes after Paolo was born. 5 minutes after she died. I never got to thank her. Never got to tell her she gave me the greatest gift. I was too late. Pietro, so I understand, Paloma. I understand the guilt, the what-ifs that eat at you in the dark. I understand why you cannot let go, why your body keeps producing milk for a baby who will never need it. Because to let go is to accept that they are truly gone. And we are not ready for that. Perhaps we will never be ready. He was right. God, he was so right it hurt. Come, he said, guiding me back to my chair. We will eat, we will talk of other things, and we will honor those we have lost by continuing to live. Because that is what they would want for us. We finished the meal with lighter conversation. He told me about his childhood in Sicily, about his grandfather who had built the family empire from nothing, about coming to America and learning that power here was bought differently than in the old country. I told him about my grandmother in Mexico, about summers spent in Oaxaca, about learning to cook from women who measured ingredients with their hearts rather than cups. It felt normal, almost like a date, if dates happened between grieving parents in the home of a mafia boss. We'd moved to the sitting room for coffee when Isabella appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Boss," she said, her voice tight. "There's been an incident." Pietro was on his feet instantly. What kind of incident? Someone tried to access the property through the east gate. The guards stopped them, but... She glanced at me. They were asking about the woman, about Paloma. Ice flooded my veins. What? Who would... Did they get any information? Pietro's voice was deadly calm. No. Marco handled it. But boss, they knew her name. They knew she was here. Pietro's expression went cold, the warmth I'd glimpsed during dinner disappearing behind the mask of the man who ruled an empire. Increase security. Double the guards on all entrances. I want to know who sent them and what they wanted within the hour. Already done. Marco wants to brief you. 10 minutes. He turned to me, and his eyes were hard. You will go to your room. You will lock the door. You will not open it for anyone except Isabella or me. Understand? Pietro, what's happening? Who? Now, Paloma. The command in his voice left no room for argument. Isabella guided me upstairs, her hand firm on my elbow. Don't be frightened, Cara. This is what Pietro does. He protects what's his. But I'm not his, I'm just... You're nursing his son. That makes you his in every way that matters. She opened the door to my suite. Stay here. Trust him to keep you safe. After she left, I checked on Paolo, sleeping peacefully in his bassinet, oblivious to the danger that apparently circled us. My hands shook as I locked the connecting door, then the main door, then sank onto the bed. Who would be asking about me? Who even knew I was here? My phone, sitting on the nightstand, buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. You can't hide forever, Paloma. We know what you are to him. We know what you're worth. Terror clawed at my throat. I grabbed the phone, intending to show Pietro, when another message came through. The baby, too. Valente blood. Imagine what people would pay for that. I ran to the door, unlocked it, and nearly collided with Pietro in the hallway. He caught me, his hand steadying me. They texted me, I gasped, shoving the phone at him. They're threatening Paolo. His face went murderous as he read the messages. Marco, he shouted, and immediately the large man appeared. Trace this number. I want to know who sent these messages and where they are, now. Already on it, boss. We've got eyes on 3 suspects from the East Gate attempt. Just waiting for your word. Bring them to the warehouse. I'll deal with them personally. Pietro handed my phone to Marco. Clone this. I want to know every message, every call she's received in the past week. Pietro, you can't just... I started. But he turned to me, his expression brooking no argument. This is what I meant about danger. This is why you cannot leave. They know about you now, Paloma. They know about Paulo, which means every enemy I have will see you both as leverage, as weakness to exploit. Then let me go. If I leave, they won't. They will hunt you more eagerly. His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. You think leaving my protection will make you safer? You are the woman nursing Valente blood. That makes you valuable whether you live here or in a motel in Nebraska. The only difference is whether I can protect you. I didn't ask for this. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't ask to be valuable or leverage or any of this. I just wanted to help a crying baby. I know. His voice softened fractionally. But this is the reality now. And I am offering you a choice, Paloma. You can stay here, under my protection, safe behind these walls with guards who will die before letting anyone touch you or Paulo. Or you can leave, try to disappear on your own, and pray my enemies find you before I do. That's not a choice. That's a threat. That's the world I live in. He pulled me against his chest, and I felt his heart racing beneath my cheek. I will not apologize for keeping you safe. I will not apologize for doing whatever is necessary to protect my son and the woman who keeps him alive. If that makes me a monster in your eyes, so be it. But you will be a safe, alive woman who thinks me a monster, rather than a dead one who was right about her freedom. I wanted to fight, to argue, to insist this was insane, but the fear flooding my system overrode everything else. Someone had tried to get to me, had threatened Paulo. The safe, predictable world I'd known was truly gone, replaced by this dangerous reality. 3 months, I whispered against his chest. You promised me 3 months. 3 months to decide if you stay, not 3 months of guaranteed freedom at the end. His arms tightened around me. I am sorry, Paloma, truly. But I will not risk you. I cannot. And there it was, the capitulation I'd been resisting since that first car ride. I was his now, whether I wanted to be or not. His to protect. His to keep. His. Okay, I whispered. Okay. His lips pressed against my hair, and I felt him release a breath he'd been holding. I will keep you safe. I swear it on my son's life. No one will touch you. No one will hurt you. You are mine to protect now. Mine. The word should have terrified me. Instead, surrounded by his strength, his certainty, his absolute conviction, I felt something else. Safe. The threats changed everything. What had been a gilded cage became a fortress, and I became something between a prisoner and a queen. Guards shadowed my every move, even within the estate. Pietro had security cameras installed in every hallway, every entrance, every blind spot that might pose a risk, and he became omnipresent. 2 weeks after the incident at the East Gate, I woke to find him sleeping in the chair by Paolo's bassinet, still dressed in yesterday's clothes, his gun visible in the shoulder holster he hadn't bothered to remove. It wasn't the first time. He'd taken to spending nights in my suite, claiming he needed to be close to his son. But I saw the truth in his eyes every time they tracked my movements. He wasn't just protecting Paulo. He was protecting me. You don't need to sleep in a chair, I said quietly, shifting Paulo to my other breast. The morning feeding. Soft light filtering through the curtains, Pietro's dark eyes watching us with an intensity that should have made me uncomfortable, but instead felt like being held. I am not sleeping. He stood, rolling his shoulders to work out the stiffness. I am keeping watch. Your men are keeping watch. You're exhausting yourself. My men failed to prevent those messages from reaching you. His voice was hard. They failed to identify the threat before it got that close. So now I watch. Personally. Pietro. They found the men who sent those texts. He moved to the window, looking out at the grounds. Marco handled the interrogation. They were hired by the Castellano family, paid to gather information about you, about Paolo, about our routines. Ice spread through my veins. The Castellano family? My oldest rivals. We have been at war, cold and calculated, for 3 generations. They control the ports, I control distribution. We maintain balance through mutual destruction if either oversteps. He turned to face me. But you, Paloma, you are new, an unknown variable. They see you as weakness they can exploit. Because I'm nursing Paolo. Because you are not born to this world. Because you appeared suddenly, mysteriously, with no background in the families. Because I have shown you favor, given you access, made you visible. His jaw tightened. I should have kept you hidden, should have been more careful. But I wanted... He stopped, his hands clenching into fists. Wanted what? To show you off. The admission seemed to cost him. To have someone at my table who was not afraid of me, who did not want something from me. To pretend, perhaps, that I could have something normal. Someone normal. I was selfish, and that selfishness put you at risk. I'd never heard him sound so human, so vulnerable. I'm not normal either, not anymore. No, he crossed to me, kneeling beside the chair where I nursed his son. You are extraordinary. You are brave and kind and strong in ways I am not, and I have dragged you into darkness that will never let you go. Then help me understand. I shifted Paolo, who had fallen asleep mid-feeding, milk-drunk and content. Help me understand what I'm part of, what you really do. Because right now I'm just reacting, just surviving. I need to know what I'm surviving in. Pietro studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Come, once Paolo is settled, I will show you. An hour later, after Isabella arrived to watch Paolo, Pietro led me through parts of the house I hadn't seen. We descended to the basement, but instead of the wine cellar or storage I expected, we entered a command center that belonged in a military operation. Banks of monitors showed security feeds from dozens of locations. Men in suits worked at computers, speaking in low voices on encrypted phones. Maps covered one wall, marked with pins and annotations I couldn't decipher. This is the heart of it, Pietro said, his hand at the small of my back. From here, we coordinate everything. The legitimate businesses, yes, but also the operations that keep us powerful, that keep us alive. A man approached, older, with silver hair and sharp eyes. Boss, we have confirmation on the Newark shipment. All packages accounted for. Good. Have Tommaso distribute as planned. And Marco, about the Castellano situation. Handled. They've been informed that any further attempts will be met with immediate retaliation. What kind of retaliation? I asked before I could stop myself. The silver-haired man's eyes flicked to me, assessing. Pietro's hand tightened on my waist. This is Paloma, Pietro said, his voice carrying authority. She is familia. You will answer her questions with the same respect you show me. The man's expression shifted, surprise giving way to understanding. Of course, boss. Miss Reyes, our retaliation would be proportional and strategic. We would target Castellano interests, likely one of their shipping operations or a key property. Send a message without starting open war. You mean you'd hurt people? We would hurt their profits. His tone was matter-of-fact. In our world, money is blood. You drain enough of it, the body weakens. Sometimes people get caught in that drainage. It is unfortunate, but necessary. The clinical way he described violence made my stomach turn, but I forced myself to nod, to not show the fear crawling up my spine. Pietro guided me to another area where photographs covered a large board. These are our enemies, men who would destroy us if given the chance. He pointed to a photo of a distinguished-looking man in his 60s. Antonio Castellano. He blames me for his son's death, though the boy was killed in a deal gone wrong with the Russians. Nevertheless, he has vowed vendetta against the Valente family. And he's the one who sent those men after me. Yes, he sees you as my weakness, sees Paolo as leverage. He does not know, cannot know, the old traditions. To him, you are just a woman I have become attached to, something he can use. But you said the old ways make me untouchable. To those who honor the old ways? Yes. Pietro's expression darkened. But Castellano is new blood, third-generation American who thinks himself above the traditions. He will not be stopped by laws written in Sicilian hillsides centuries ago. He will only be stopped by force. I looked at the photographs, at the web of connections drawn between them, at the notations about territories and operations and blood feuds stretching back generations. This was the world Pietro lived in, the world I'd stumbled into. "Show me the rest," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. "If I'm part of this, I need to understand all of it." Something shifted in Pietro's expression. Respect, perhaps, or satisfaction that I was finally accepting reality. He showed me everything. The shipping manifests that hid contraband, the construction companies that laundered money, the restaurants and clubs that served as meeting places and fronts, the network of lawyers, judges, and police on the payroll. The sheer scope of it was staggering. "You control half the city," I breathed. "I control the parts that matter." He pulled up a financial spreadsheet that showed numbers I couldn't fully comprehend. Last year, our operations generated $300 million. Half of that is legitimate. The other half, he shrugged. The other half is why men like Castellano want me dead. And this is what Paolo will inherit. This empire built on violence and crime. This empire built on family, Pietro corrected. On loyalty and honor and protecting our own. Yes, there is violence. Yes, there is crime. But there is also this. He pulled up another screen showing charitable foundations, scholarships, community programs. We take care of our people, Paloma. The neighborhoods where others fear to invest, we build. The families that fall through society's cracks, we catch. We are not heroes, but we are not monsters either. We are necessary. I wanted to argue, to point out the moral gymnastics required to justify criminal enterprise through charity. But I'd seen too much poverty, too much suffering in the communities no one else cared about. I knew that sometimes the devil you know provided more than the angels who ignored you. "Where do I fit in all this?" I asked finally. "Where do you want to fit?" He turned to face me fully. "You could simply be Paolo's wet nurse. Stay in your room, care for my son, be protected but peripheral. Or," he paused, "or you could be more. Be the woman at my side, the one who helps me see beyond the violence to the people we protect. Be my conscience, perhaps, my reminder that there is more to life than power." "Your wife." The words slipped out before I could stop them. "Eventually, yes. No hesitation, no doubt. When you are ready, when you understand what that means. But for now, just be you. Be the woman who calms my son, who challenges me, who makes me want to be better than I am. I'm not Maria. No." His hand cupped my face. "You are Paloma, and that is exactly who I need." A commotion above drew his attention, shouting, the sound of doors slamming. Pietro's expression went hard, and suddenly there was a gun in his hand, produced from somewhere I hadn't seen. "Stay here," he commanded, already moving toward the stairs. "Pietro." "Marco," he shouted, "get her to the safe room, now." The silver-haired man was at my side immediately, his own weapon drawn. "This way, Miss Reyes." "What's happening?" Is it Paolo? Paolo is safe with Isabella in the nursery panic room. You need to come with me. He guided me to a hidden door I'd never noticed, down another hallway, into a room that was clearly designed to withstand a siege. Reinforced walls, monitors showing every angle of the estate, weapons stored in locked cases. What's going on? I demanded, as Marco sealed the door. Someone breached the north perimeter, 2 cars, armed men. He was already on his phone. Boss, she's secure. Say the word. I couldn't hear Pietro's response, but Marco nodded. Understood. We'll hold position. Through the monitors, I watched chaos unfold. Men in dark clothes swarming the grounds, Pietro's guards engaging them, gunfire crackling, and Pietro himself, moving with deadly grace, taking down threats with cold efficiency. This was the man I'd been living with, not the careful father who held his son, not the wounded widower who understood my grief. This was the Mafia boss who ruled through fear and violence, and I was terrified of him and for him in equal measure. The firefight lasted less than 10 minutes. By the time it was over, 3 of the attackers were dead, 2 were captured, and the rest had fled. Pietro's men had taken some injuries, but nothing fatal. Pietro appeared on the monitor outside the safe room door. Open it, he commanded. Marco hesitated. Boss, we should wait for... Open the door, Marco. The lock disengaged, and Pietro entered. His white shirt was spattered with blood, his knuckles bruised, his eyes wild with adrenaline and rage. He crossed to me in 3 strides and pulled me against him, his hands shaking as they framed my face. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? No, I'm fine. Marco got me here before... His mouth crashed down on mine, stealing my breath, my words, my thoughts. The kiss was desperate, possessive, claiming me in ways words never could. When he finally pulled back, we were both gasping. You are mine, he said fiercely. Mine to protect. Mine to keep safe. Mine. Do you understand? Yes. The word escaped on a breath. Say it. Tell me you understand. I'm yours, I whispered. Yours, Pietro. The satisfied growl he made was pure predator. Good. Because I will burn this city to ash before I let anyone take you from me. And looking into his wild eyes, at the blood on his clothes from protecting me, I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. The attack changed everything. Pietro became a ghost in his own home, constantly meeting with his men, planning retaliation, fortifying defenses. I barely saw him except when he appeared in my suite late at night, checking on Paolo, his eyes haunted. 3 weeks passed in tense silence. Then Isabella came to me with an invitation. There's a christening, she said, laying out a cream-colored dress on my bed. Pietro's cousin's baby. The family expects you both to attend. Is it safe? Pietro says yes. It's in the old cathedral, neutral ground. All the families will be there. No one would dare break the peace during a christening. She smiled softly. It would be good for you to get out, Cara, to see that there's more to this world than violence. So I agreed. Dressed in the beautiful gown, let Isabella style my hair, even wore the pearls Pietro had given me the week before. When he saw me, something shifted in his expression. You look like you belong, he said quietly. To this world? To me. The cathedral was magnificent, all soaring ceilings and stained glass that painted the floor in jeweled light. The families filled the pews, dressed in their finest, a show of power disguised as piety. I recognized faces from Pietro's briefings, the Russos, the Benedettis, the Castellanos. Antonio Castellano watched us enter, his old eyes sharp with malice. Stay close, Pietro murmured, his hand firm at my waist. The ceremony was beautiful. The baby, barely 2 months old, slept through his own christening, while the priest blessed him with holy water. I held Paolo, who watched everything with wide, curious eyes, occasionally reaching for the pearls at my throat. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the cathedral hall. Food, wine, families mingling with careful courtesy. I was speaking with Pietro's cousin, admiring her baby, when Isabella appeared at my elbow. "Cara, Paolo needs changing. There's a room down the hall the staff is using." I glanced at Pietro, who was deep in conversation with several older men. He nodded slightly, and Marco detached from his position to follow me. The changing room was quiet, empty except for me and Paolo. I laid him on the table, unsnapping his little outfit, smiling at his kicking legs. "Such a handsome boy," I murmured. "So strong. Your papa will be so proud." The door burst open. Not Marco. 3 men I'd never seen, moving with terrifying speed. One grabbed me, his hand over my mouth before I could scream. Another scooped up Paolo. I bit down hard on the hand, tasted blood, managed half a scream before something sharp pricked my neck. The world tilted, darkened. The last thing I saw was Paolo's face, his mouth open in a wail I could no longer hear. Then nothing. I woke in darkness, my head pounding, my arms bound behind me. Slowly, shapes resolved. A warehouse, cold and empty. And across from me, in a car seat on a metal table, Paolo screaming. Finally awake. Antonio Castellano emerged from the shadows, his aged face creased with satisfaction. I was beginning to think my men used too much sedative. "Where? Paolo." My voice was hoarse. "The baby is fine. For now." He circled me slowly. "You, however, are in a difficult position. You see, I needed something Pietro Valente values more than his empire. And you, my dear, are that something. He'll kill you. Probably." Antonio shrugged. "But first, he'll give me what I want. Control of the eastern ports, 3 of his distribution networks, and his public acknowledgement that the Castellanos are the superior family. He'll never. For his son? For you?" Antonio smiled coldly. "He already has. My men called 30 minutes ago. Pietro has agreed to all my terms. In exchange, he gets you both back alive. Quite the touching display of weakness." Horror washed over me. Pietro had surrendered his empire. For us. "When?" I managed. "The exchange happens in 2 hours. His men will bring the contracts, the transfer documents, everything signed and notarized. And then I'll return you both." He leaned closer, assuming he doesn't try anything foolish. But I knew Pietro, knew he wouldn't just hand over his legacy without a fight, which meant this was all going to end in blood. The 2 hours crawled by. Paolo's screams eventually subsided to whimpers, then exhausted silence. My breasts ached with fullness, my milk letting down at his cries. They'd moved us to the main floor of the warehouse, positioned us in the center where we'd be visible from all angles. When the doors opened, it wasn't Pietro who entered first. It was Marco, carrying a briefcase, flanked by 2 of Antonio's men. "Where is he?" Antonio demanded. "Outside. He wants to see them first. Proof of life." Antonio gestured, and one of his men lifted Paolo from the car seat. The baby's weak cry pierced my heart. "Satisfied?" Antonio called toward the door. "Not quite." Pietro's voice echoed in the cavernous space. "I need to see Paloma. Need to know she's unharmed." Another gesture, and the man holding me yanked me to my feet, turning me to face the door. Pietro stood in the entrance, backlit by afternoon sun, flanked by more men than I could count. Our eyes met across the distance, and in that moment, I saw everything. His rage, his fear, his absolute determination. "The contracts?" Antonio demanded. Marco opened the briefcase, displaying documents. All signed, notarized, legal and binding, The ports, the networks, everything, in exchange for their safe return. Excellent. Antonio nodded to his men. Bring them forward. They started moving us toward the center, toward Marco, toward freedom. That's when all hell broke loose. The explosion came from the east wall, blowing inward with deafening force. Pietro's men poured through the gap, weapons drawn. Antonio's guards opened fire, and suddenly the warehouse was a war zone. Someone tackled me to the ground, covering my body. "Stay down!" Marco's voice in my ear. "Don't move!" Gunfire, shouting, the acrid smell of smoke and blood. I couldn't see Paolo, couldn't hear him over the chaos. Then silence. Sudden and absolute. "Paloma." Pietro's voice, ragged and desperate. I looked up to find him standing over me, Paolo cradled safely in his arms. Blood streaked his face, his clothes, but his eyes were clear. "You came," I whispered. "Did you think I wouldn't?" He helped me up with one hand, the other securing Paolo against his chest. "Did you think I would let contracts and territories matter more than you? Than him?" Antonio said you agreed. I lied. His smile was cold. I would have said anything to get close enough. To get you both back. Around us, the aftermath. Antonio Castellano on the ground, hands zip-tied, surrounded by Pietro's men. His guards either dead or surrendering. "It's over," Pietro said. "All of it." Over the next few days, I learned what that meant. Pietro had used the kidnapping as justification to destroy the Castellano family completely. Their operations seized, their properties confiscated, their power broken. The other families, horrified by the violation of sacred ground at the christening, had sanctioned the action. But more than that, Pietro had decided something fundamental. "I'm stepping back," he told me one night, Paolo asleep between us in my bed. "Not completely. I will always be Valente, but I'm giving Marco more control, letting the younger generation handle day-to-day operations." "Why?" "Because I almost lost you, both of you. And I realize that all the power, all the territory, all of it means nothing if I'm alone in the dark." His hand found mine. "I want more, Paloma. I want a life, a real life. With you, if you'll have me. Pietro, marry me." He pulled a ring from his pocket, simple gold with a single diamond. "Not because of tradition or obligation, because I love you. Because you make me want to be more than what I am. Because every time I see you with my son, I think this. This is what Maria wanted for him. Not an empire of violence, but a home of love." Tears streamed down my face. "I'm still broken. I'm still grieving Sophia." "Then grieve. I'll hold you through it." His thumb wiped my tears. "We'll both grieve. Together. And maybe from our broken pieces we can build something whole." I looked at this dangerous man who'd upended my life, who'd claimed me without permission, who'd shown me that love could exist even in darkness. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes." We married quietly 3 months later. No fanfare, no grand wedding. Just family in the cathedral where we'd nearly lost everything. Isabella cried. Marco smiled, and Paolo, held by both of us during the ceremony, grabbed our joined hands in his tiny fists, as if to say, "Mine. Both of you are mine." A year later, I gave birth to a daughter. We named her Sophia Maria, for all we'd lost, for all we'd found. Pietro held her with the same reverence he'd shown Paolo, tears streaming down his face. "She's perfect." "She is." I watched him with our children, this man who'd saved me in more ways than I could count. "They both are. As are you, my Paloma." He kissed my forehead. "As are you." And in that moment, Holding our daughter while our son slept peacefully nearby, I finally understood. I hadn't lost everything in that accident. I'd lost my old life, yes. But I'd found this, a family forged from tragedy, love born from grief, a future I never could have imagined. I was Paloma Valente now, wife to a man who'd renounced his empire for me, mother to children who would grow up knowing both their history and their hope.